All right, we are getting in breaking news from Iran. In fact, these are visuals coming in from Iran, where the massive crowd has gathered to pay final tribute to Iranian President, the departed Ebrahim Raisi. He was killed in a chopper crash just days back. Remember, there has been a day of mourning, and in the country, in India also, the embassy's flag was at half-mast yesterday. And you can see those visuals coming in. Hundreds and thousands of Iranians paying tribute to Ebrahim Raisi. You can see that procession there of Ebrahim Raisi, and so many people have gathered. I believe these are visuals coming in from Tehran, and massive crowds have gathered to pay the final tribute to Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi. Remember, there have been some new appointments. It's on 28th of June that Iranian president was declared dead. And there has been a lot of blame game that has also broken out on what really happened. The investigation, of course, is underway. But the days of funeral ceremonies for President Raisi, as investigators probe the helicopter crash, has begun. And my colleague Shavan Sen, in fact, is joining us live on the broadcast from the newsroom. Shavan, of course, Iran currently is, of course, in a state of shock and mourning, and the funeral procession, the funeral ceremonies have now begun. Hundreds of Iranians have gathered. There has been, of course, a lot of, we've seen a lot of protests also against the Iranian regime, but nevertheless, we see that the Iranians have now gathered in huge numbers to pay the final tribute.
Been declared by the Iranian authorities. Now, in terms of the vacuum that has been created, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei has already declared that as per the constitution of Iran, the elections will be held in the next 50 days. Now, what is going to happen is that Vice President Moghber will basically take over as far as the day-to-day affairs are concerned. And within 50 days, Iran perhaps is going to see a new president being elected. Remember, the president is essentially elected by the people of Iran, and the final stamp is, of course, given by the supreme leader. This undoubtedly has come across as a big shock because, remember, President Ebrahim Raisi, who was in Azerbaijan for inaugurating a dam along. This was a joint inauguration by Azerbaijan and Iran, and the incident took place on Sunday late evening. In fact, this was moments after his chopper took off from Azerbaijan, and there was a hard landing that was to be done because of inclement weather. And thereafter, rescue operations were basically carried out for over 12 hours, with finally the bodies being recovered only late yesterday morning. Now, what's important to point out here is that while there is a section within the Iranians too who have been mourning the death of President Raisi, because he's largely been seen as someone who was extremely close to the supreme leader. Secondly, remember, several changes were basically brought in. One, the fact that there have been multiple protests that have taken place during the reign of President Raisi, particularly what we saw in the last 2 years itself. Remember, he's also known as the Butcher of Tehran because as the chief prosecutor, it is he who had basically given the green signal for political prisoners being taken into custody, and that is the reason why he was known as the Butcher of Tehran. On the other hand, remember, what is also important to point out here is that he was against being seen close to the West and had made it abundantly clear that Iran is not going to fall into the trap of the West. Now, that was a position that the president had taken. That did find some resonance among a section of Iranians who had supported him. On the other hand, his radical approach did not really see him as someone who was approachable by the West.
Absolutely, Shavan. In fact,